Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, Citizen Gumshoes, aka Morbid Sunshine, aka EJ Investigates. Yeah, I couldn't find my title for my channel, so here we go. We're back to reading Adria English's complaints against the Diddy Enterprise. We're up to page 72 now. I know it's taken a bit of time to read this one, but I should respect that these court documents are evidence, and also that they're detailed, and you're not going to get pictures on YouTube of the case, of situations, evidence that's being put forward at the moment. I'm looking into trying to get something on Courtney Burgess's hard drives, seeing what, well, not seeing, just knowing what the contents are would be fair enough for me, and I think for anyone who's invested in the case. So I'm sorry I've done no Rex Human investigative insight to look into, because there's nothing fundamentally objective out there to tell you, so I keep it to myself. Okay, unless it's ethical information, I'm not sharing it. Okay, so what I mean is about Hackett and the case there. I will read the synopsis and I will read the deposition. I will do that with anything to do with Human, but right now there is no insight for me to tell you. I've tried to tell you about certain evidence, that there's more than one, but it seems to be that nobody can subscribe, like my channel. I'm getting shadow banned for this information. You know, people are not investing in it because people are not watching it, because there's not many people. It's not getting into the algorithm because these details, right, are not wanting to be known out there. People don't want a record of this stuff. Okay, now I'm reading, reciting all the court documents I can find. It's going to take months, okay? It's not me. I'm not going to splash things out there for you to know without reading all this out here, because you can believe anything you want on Law and Crime. As you know how much they've been involved in looking into certain things, you know? What we've got to highlight is this is an enterprise. It's not just Puff Daddy, okay? It's his sons. It's the goons being around him. It's an enterprise, okay? And we need to stop the enterprise. The book's just come out, and I've just discovered that he's an absolute fraud. He's doing that on behalf of somebody. Now this is my point of view, so you can't sue me for that. But it seems like there's Jay-Z involvement to me, yeah, involved in that book. There's like a connection with Jay-Z and Diddy, but I feel that there's someone even higher up than that. There's some kind of Freemasonry as well involved, and throwing symbols up when you're trying to sell Kim Porter's memoir, it's going to create more and more delving. Okay, so if people are in the Freemasons, it's going to make people want to know more about what's going on. So, and of course it is. It's some kind of, they're worshipping not our God, but the God of, well, the devil of greed. Anyway, I'm not going to go on about that. That's my 5-minute intro about what I'm doing this for. I'm spend a minute talking about you guys, the people who are looking into this, the small handful of people who subscribed mean the world to me, because they realise that all the salation out there in the world isn't going to give us the proof and the case in black and white. And I want that for you. I want you to know as much as I find out. And that's how you and me work together, and with our intellect we can come to our ethical conclusions of what we want to believe. Okay, I'm not going to say I'm the smartest person out there, so if you yourself have a idea or a theory, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts and your insights. Adria has got first-hand experience of being in the Combs household. I believe her story. I believe victims. Okay, that's what this channel's about. It's not creating doubt. And a lot of these people who we are calling enablers are victims too, to a certain degree. Yeah, let's read the rest. We're up to 284 paragraph. 284. Oh no, 85. So I can't. Do you know what? I'm sick of reading all these company things, but it has to be done. Defendants, BBE, SGC, CGE and Vibe and PNC failed to properly supervise defendant Combs and protect plaintiff from known danger, and thereby enable Combs to trafficking and of the plaintiff. Defendant BBE and SGC and CGE and Vibe and PNC neglectedly deemed that defendant Combs was fit to be position authority and or that any previous suitability problems defendant Combs had were fixed and cured, and that Combs would not commit acts of abuse, battery, harassment, and trafficking, and that Combs would not injure others. It's a given, really, isn't it? You know, that way. Yes, it is. Moreover, defendant BBE and SGC and CGE enabled the trafficking of the plaintiff by actively employing defendant Combs in a position of power and authority through which Combs had control over people, including the plaintiff. As a direct and proximate result of the aforementioned crime and violence and gender-motivated violence, plaintiff has sustained and will continue to sustain monetary damages, personal injury, physical injury, pain and suffering, and serious psychological and emotional distress, entitling her to award of compensatory and punitive damages, injunctive and declaratory relief attorneys' fees and costs, and other remedies that this cause may deem appropriate damages as set forth. Wherefore, plaintiff respectively requests a judgment against the defendant that declares defendant Combs engaged in lawful practices prohibited by New York City's victims of gender-motivated violence. Combs drugged and trafficked the plaintiff. Declares that defendant BBE and SGC and CGE, Thomas and Jacobs and Vibes and PMC and Does and organisational Does engaged in unlawful practices prohibited by New York City victims of gender-motivated violence Protection Act, in that they enabled defendant Combs' commission of the crimes of violence motivated by gender. Awards the plaintiff compensatory damages for mental emotional injury, distress and pain and suffering, and injury to her reputation, consequential damages and lost wages, earnings, and all other sums of money, together with interest on these amounts, in an amount to be proven. Awards plaintiff damages against defendant joint and severely. The award plaintiff punitive exemplary damages according to proof. Award plaintiff attorney fees, costs, and expenses incurred in the pursuance of this action. Award pre-judgment and post-judgment interest, and so she has proof, and awards plaintiff such other and further relief as the court may deem equitable and just. 6. For cause of action. Premises liability for the assault committed by defendant Jacob the jeweler. Remember him. Plaintiff incorporates by reference all proceeds, paragraphs, and re-allegations them as if set forth in full herein. So she's given a full statement about Jacobs, right? Plaintiff was extracted by defendant Jacob at the White Party in 2007 in the Hamptons, New York. I wonder if this guy is known in the underworld. New York. Defendant Combs was present. This is what my channel's about uncovering corruption in New York. That's what's come to my channel, by the way. This is why I'm doing these cases. I do trafficking cases, you know, talking about the Long Island serial killer, how there was more killers, you know, involved. Basically, using girls who were vulnerable, basically. So Jacobs is one of many people who feel, because he's not famous, that he shouldn't be known. Now, this man could be still out there. So be aware of this man, people, okay? Defendant Combs was present along with other high-profile individuals while plaintiff was being assaulted by defendant Jacobs at the party. Plaintiff was legally on the premises by employee Combs, BBE, SGC, and CGE. Now, they are responsible. Not Diddy. They as well. Defendant Jacob was legally on the premises owned by defendant Combs as a guest and invitee of Mr. Combs. Mr. Combs owned the premises and had domination and control over the premises. There's a lot of unsolved murders in the Hamptons, by the way, where plaintiff was harmed. Defendant Combs had domination and control over the actions of defendant Jacob and failed to step in and stop defendant Jacob from assaulting the plaintiff. You know what type of assault. As the property owner, defendant Combs had the duty to protect plaintiff from the harm she suffered at the hands of defendant Jacob. Defendant Jacob breached his duty when he failed to stop defendant Jacob from assaulting plaintiff. In furtherance of this breach, defendant Combs demanded and encouraged defendant Jacob and possibly others to assault the plaintiff. Plaintiff has suffered immensely because of defendant Combs' intentional breach of duty. As a result of breach care of his duty, the plaintiff has suffered continues to suffer harm, including severe emotional distress, anxiety and other consequential damages, for which he is entitled to an award of monetary damages and other relief. Defendant Combs, this is a brave girl because she's gone to court, you know. She's come forward, I don't know when, March. So, you know what, good for her, because, you know, there weren't anyone who was willing apart from Cassie, you know what I mean. Defendant Combs conducted, see, this gives credence to what Cassie was going through. Now, okay, yeah, when you're young, you want to have fun and things like that, and you think, yeah, it'll be fun, but you know what, there's that type of person out there who would want to take it to the next level and things like that. My best advice is to avoid them, change your number, just go off grid. Don't listen. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. What's in the dark comes to the light, though, eventually. But this girl has waited so long because he's blackballed her. You know, she had no way of getting out of that. But people dream of living in New York and they do whatever it takes to live there, and it's a beautiful place in the world. But I think there's a lot of he's took advantage of that. He's took advantage of that. And people like Abercrombie as well. You know what I mean? You can see the evil in them. You can. It's like Jacobs. You can see the evil. Okay? Defendant Combs' conduct described above was willful, wanton and malicious at all relevant times. Defendant Combs acted with cautious disregard for the plaintiff's rights and feelings, acted with the knowledge of, or with the reckless disregard of, the fact that their conduct was certain to cause injury to the plaintiff and intended to cause fear, physical injury and pain and suffering to the plaintiff. Plaintiff believes always go to a solicitor as well. If you please, just go, you know what, get it, write it down as well, what happened, you know. Intended to cause fear, physical injury and pain and suffering to the plaintiff. Plaintiff believes defendant Combs intended his conduct against the plaintiff primarily because of her gender. By virtue of the foregoing, plaintiff is entitled to recover punitive damages. Act 7th Course of Action. The Trafficking and Victim Protection Act against all defendants. All defendants. Okay. It's a big one now. So we'll see people get called up. Plaintiff incorporates by reference all preceding paragraphs and realleges them as if set forth fully herein. Defendant knowingly, intentionally participated in, perpetrated, assisted, supported and facilitated the trafficking enterprise that was in and affect interstate commerce. He's also, Jacob the jeweler, had another case of this happening. So it isn't a mystery. It isn't a one-off enterprise that was in fact affecting interstate commerce, together with others in violation. Among other things, defending Combs and Thomas, knowingly and intentionally, this is the Ghislaine Maxwell Thomas. You know, she might make out she's a nice girl, but she's not. And intentionally recruited, enticed, provided, obtained, advertised, and solicited by various means. Plaintiff knowingly that the defendants Combs and Thomas would use means of force and threats, of force, fraud, coercion, and a combination of such means to cause the plaintiff to engage in commercial acts. Defendants BBE, SGC and CGE and Vibe and PMC and its employees had actual knowledge that they were perpetrating and facilitating defendant Combs' abuse and trafficking conspiracy to recruit, solicit, entice, coerce, harbour and transport, obtain and provide plaintiff as well as others into commercial sex acts, though that means force, threats, fraud, abuse of process and coercion. Despite such knowledge, defendants intentionally paid for, facilitated, perpetrated and participated in defendant Combs' violation, which defendants were reckless disregard of the fact defendant Combs would coerce, defraud and force plaintiff to engage in S work and via commercial acts. Defendants' actions were affecting interstate commerce, including distributing and marketing material, publishing activities with Vibe magazine, which were affecting interstate property commerce. By taking the concrete steps alleged in the complaint, defendant knowingly participated in trafficking and furthered defending Combs' trafficking enterprise. This is Jacobs. The concrete steps constituted and Thomas, and taking part in trafficking enterprise and were necessary for its success. The concrete steps constituted active engagement by all defendants in defending Combs' trafficking enterprise. Defendants knew that their active engagement would lead and to cause coercive trafficking. Commercial. So they're using the magazine for them type of, probably on the back page, on anything. In perpetrating TVPA violations, upon information and belief, defendant Combs and Thomas willfully failed to file required taxes with federal government. That's a good one to get them on. Defendant's affirmative conduct was committed knowingly and in reckless disregard of the fact that defendant Combs would use cash and the financial support provided by defendants BBE, SGC, CGE, Vibe and PMC as a means of defrauding, forcing and coercive acts from the plaintiffs as well as others. Defendant's conduct was outrageous and intentional. It's bold. Defendants knowingly and intentionally conduct has caused plaintiffs serious harm, including without limitation, physical, psychological, emotional and financial and reputational harm. This case does not involve mere fraud. Instead, defendant criminal conduct in perpetrating TVPA regulations was outrageous and intentional because it was in deliberate furtherance of widespread dangerous criminal trafficking organisation. It could have got out of hand as well. It did get out of hand. There's a lot more to this that we don't know. Dark, Defendant's conduct was evinced as high degree moral turpitude and demonstrated as such wanton dishonesty and to imply a criminal indifference to civil obligations. Defendant's criminal conduct was directed specifically at the plaintiff because of her gender, who was victim of defendant Combs' trafficking enterprise. Defendant's outrageous and intentional conduct in this case is part of a pattern and practice profiting by undertaking illegal high-risk, high-reward actions. By virtue of these knowing international violations, defendants are liable to the plaintiff for damages she sustained and reasonable attorney fees. Eighth cause of action: aiding, abetting and inducing a trafficking enterprise in violation of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act against defendants Thomas Jacob, BBE, SGC, CGE, Vibe, PMC, DOES, organisational DOES. Hiding a lot of people here. Plaintiff incorporates by reference all preceding paragraphs and re-alleges them as set forth fully herein. Hi, I just wanted to point out here that certain parts of the documentation are repetitive and go into causes of action. I will read out ones that are fresh to our eyes, and I will just briefly go through it because there's so many, and we know that these are trafficking offences, and what it is, each count is making defendant Combs liable, Jacobs the jeweller accountable, Thomas, and also Vibe and all the other companies, and that's what the counts of trafficking go into. It's not just Combs that this lady is making a complaint about, it's also the companies, as we've just read for 4 hours. So I just don't want to put that up because we can scan through it, but as I say, we should briefly go through it because it's taken a lot of our time, really, which is not a problem, but I just want to save our eyes from repetitive law talk. So I'll turn it over and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, right now, okay, I will leave these documents here and you can scan through them. Each count is a count of action of trafficking against Vibe, against PNC, against defendant Doe. Now that's another thing, we don't know who defendant Doe is. We can speculate on this, who it could be, but you know, these are all things we also have spoken about, and it's just going through each cause of the trafficking offence, who's getting charged for SGC, also CGE, and also Vibe, because also I'll show the evidence in a minute. They were advertising on the back of their own page, you know, organisational Doe's defendants, cause of action against them. He's encouraged a lot of people to go along with this. Do we call them victims? Do we call them? But it's enabling, and this is what these things that these counts are explaining. I'm scanning through it as I can read fast, but I can't read out fast. This type of thing we have read upon, but I'll read here. Upon information and belief, the recent defendants ignored numerous red flags about defendant Combs was to receive financial benefit from the sex trafficking enterprise. Defendant knew that they would gain far from routine benefits by ignoring the red flags associated with defendant Combs, and by participating in his trafficking enterprise. Upon information and belief, among the concrete steps of the defendant took to aid and participate in the Combs trafficking, you know, so these people have took steps into helping him accompany these things financially, paying these girls and things like that. Upon information and belief, defendant Vibe and PMC were also business of promoting money for sex, as seen as classified in the section Defendant Vibe and PMC, November magazine 2006. Look at this.
There's a lot of people gone missing, guys, now, you know, and I'm glad this man's caught, but there's an association and an enterprise into this. It was like, you know, with the human case, something doesn't add up with that. It's like dark web stuff, you know. They get prostitutes because they're not going to be looked for straight away, and, you know, that type of thing. And the target, they look down upon them. And he's got that messiah complex of his. So straight away, it's intimidating. It's frightening. You don't know how much he knows about you, you know. Okay. Must be on his back of his thing. Yeah. Upon information and belief, due to the facts that, hang on, sorry a minute, hang on. Due to the facts that came to their attention through complaints filed by Classy Ventura and others accusing defendant Combs of S trafficking, defendants knew to a certainty that Combs was engaged in S trafficking. This is the magazine, by the way. Also soon, you know. Upon information and belief, defendant knew the names of many Combs S trafficking victims, including the plaintiff. Upon information and belief, defendant helped to conceal the name of Combs victims from the public and from law enforcement and prosecuting agencies by helping to conceal the existence of the S trafficking enterprise, including failing to get to release of the plaintiff before publishing her picture in Defendant Vibes and PMC's November 2006 edition. Among other ways in which defendant helped to conceal the enterprise existence was by failing to properly monitor and audit defendant Combs to ensure that the resources provided were being used in a legal manner, as well as ensuring that the proper accounting and tax reporting was made to the federal government. Defendants have constructive knowledge of Combs' S trafficking enterprise. Because of specific acts by defendant Combs that put it on the notice of particular and ongoing S trafficking enterprise, among specific acts were Combs' White Parties events and representative defendants, specifically Tom's, Combs and Vibes and PMC, periodically attended. Defendant Combs had narcotics and S workers present, circumstances that should have prompted defendants and its employees to raise questions about Combs' S trafficking and or if he was using resources provided to him by defendant to continue to such enterprise. Okay. White parties turning it into a cultural phenomenon, infiltrating with the general business partnership of defendant Combs as his white parties, gained legitimacy, immense success and access to top emerging artists, celebrities, famous athletes, politicians, musicians and international dignitaries like former President Trump. Defendant knew firsthand the power and influence and the effect of attaching themselves to defendant Combs, which would have their non-bottom line in evidence by their repeated general business partnership with Defendant Combs, ranging from 1993 to most recently. Defendant profited from the infiltration with Defendant Combs. Sorry, I'll say that again. Defendant profited from their affiliation with Defendant Combs, affiliation, and their general business partnership may have supported this trafficking enterprise. Defendant Combs and Combs-owned controlled entities used the marketing and resources they received from their general business partnership to facilitate the trafficking enterprise. Defendant Combs benefited from the general business practices. Okay. Upon information and belief, defendant knew and was reckless disregard of the fact that Defendant Combs' pattern and practice to use the channels and instrumentals of the interstate commerce, vehicles, yachts, and commercial airlines. I heard he did a lot of his partying in his airplane. I mean, there was one occasion where he went on a flight from Tuesday to Sunday morning, and then I don't know if he lands for or well, but how it works is you're not breaking any federal laws, or you're at sea, so what goes at sea is your responsibility. You know, things like that. It's entitled to different laws, you know. It will use vehicles and commercial flights to entice, recruit, solicit, harbour, provide, obtain, and transport individuals like the plaintiff. Sorry. For anyone who wants to read it, it is really just repeating what we were talking about. I know it sounds like I'm not trivializing in any means whatsoever. Okay. I just wish to let you know and see the paperwork yourselves, to see the documentation yourselves, and I hope you've appreciated that about me. I'm not hiding anything, okay? I'm trying to find anything I can of interest. Upon information and belief, defendants were aware of Defendant Combs had a laundry list of criminal charges and barely escaped serving prison time. Defendants were aware that there were public allegations that Defendant Combs' illegal conduct was facilitated by several named co-conspirators. They were made aware of this complaint made by Ventura and other lawsuits, including R&B singers Tremaine Neverson, aka Trey Songz, and Chris Brown. Defendants' international conduct attempted to obstruct, in many ways interfered with, and prevented enforcement of the TVPA by investigators and prosecuting defense agencies. We'll look up those people. He's a dangerous criminal. Let's put it that way. You know. Her evidence is her pictures, you know. Which does prove he didn't give a shit about who you are, what you're exploiting, everyone he knew. Third, 33rd cause of action. Plaintiff incorporates by reference all preceding paragraphs and re-alleges them as set forth. Defendant Vibe and PMC commercially exploited and publicised plaintiff's image, likeness and identity as part of an infringed use, and in doing so created a false sponsorship and I can't say that word. Infiltration between plaintiff and defendants. Though the infringing uses, defendant has falsely implied that the plaintiff endorsed defendant's goods and services, like continuing to force that defendant Combs' white parties were lavish, high-profile network events, willing to participate in the trafficking, he says. The unauthorised use of the plaintiff's image. And there we go, guys. Okay, she's asking for her justice, and rightly so. I can't really argue with this. It's been an interesting read, but he really isn't, to me, keeping it short and sweet, which really is. I know it is a big case, but these files, some of them are not detailed enough, and then some of them they're going on about certain things, but they're not mentioning too many details at all. But this one's been quite detailed. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please subscribe and take care, everyone. Bye bye.